receiver, Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. Not angry about this pick at all. You're looking at if you were looking at what the if you were looking at what if you were looking at what the Packers had at receiver, you would know that this is probably one of the best picks for them. You're looking at the Packers receiving core. I mean, just straight up, you had a very obviously Devontae Adams left in free agency this year. So did Marquez Scantling. So suddenly you were looking at Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb being your number 1 and number 2 options. So yeah, I mean, this is a really good pick. It's a really solid pick for the Packers. They desperately needed a wide receiver. We all knew that heading into the draft. And they didn't pick one in the first round, but Christian Watson is a solid pickup now. We're going to move these helmets. If you don't know, these are the helmets of the teams that are going to be picking next. Let's see who picks after the Colts. Okay. Anyways, let's look at what the Titans are going to be picking. The pick is already in for the Tennessee Titans, but let's talk a little bit about what I think they could go here. I think it's going to be interesting who they end up going with. But while they're talking, I think we should obviously point out the obvious. Treylon Burks is now the number 1 wide receiver after having traded away A.J. Brown last night for a first-round pick to draft Treylon Burks, who basically replaced A.J. Brown with a guy that was unproven. But, you got to go defensive. You got to think if you're the Tennessee Titans, maybe defensive line. Oh, they take Roger McCreary, Tennessee corner out of Auburn. He's automatically going to add to a lackluster, not going to be maybe rather blunt, lackluster corner room so far. Christian Fulton, Caleb Farley was a rookie that everyone was a lot of hyped last year. He got hurt, and he never really got to play. So we're going to see how Caleb Farley does as the season goes on. But Roger McCreary, who was phenomenal last year against Alabama and all the games that he was in, did a great job covering his receivers, but you focus on the Alabama game. It's the one that pops off to you the most, simply because it's easier to remember. I mean, it's easy to remember him playing so well in there because that's just the one everyone watched. So everyone's going to remember him playing well in that game, but it definitely adds to a lackluster receiving core for this team. I mean, not receiving core. Dang, sorry. I mean corner room. The corner room isn't great. Jets just traded up. So Jets move likely with the Giants. Giants probably move back down here. Jets is going to be interesting. So let's take a look at the Jets Jets team real quick. And we have a commercial break, so we can do that. It's going to give us a little bit more time to breathe and look at this Jets team. It's an interesting team. The Jets team's interesting. So you have a lot of good young players. Right off the bat, you have 2 offensive linemen that have the possibility of being huge stars in the future, and Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker, both young players, and it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward. Lincoln Tomlinson and George Fant are both solid offensive linemen. It's going to be interesting moving forward. You have a good young receiving core, and that's what is fascinating about this team. You have Elijah Moore, who you drafted in the second round last year, and has shown flashes of being really good. You have Corey Davis, who didn't really live up to expectations this year, but has the chance to going forward. And you got Garrett Wilson in the first round. Not to mention Braxton Berrios was really good for you guys last year. And Denzel Mims is a player that everyone is waiting to break out. So it's going to be interesting. Also, I think the Jets had one of my favorite drafts so far. Because you mentioned Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was my number 2 receiver. They picked him as the second receiver off the board. Jermaine Johnson, rookie out of Florida State. Everyone is really excited about coming out of the draft. Not to mention, the defensive line becomes quite scary with that addition because you have Carl Lawson. Now you have Sheldon Rankins and Quinnen Williams inside. Jermaine Johnson now is going to be the other defensive end. Not to mention John Franklin Myers, who has shown flashes at times of being a really great defensive end. And the room's kind of interesting in New York. You look at the linebacker room, it's not my favorite linebacker room with guys like Delshon Phillips, C.J. Mosley, and Quincy Williams. I think that could definitely be improved here. But you got Ahmed Sauce Gardner, who's many consider to be the best corner in the draft, one of the best players in the draft. You got him at 4. You have Bryce Hall, who's a solid corner on the other side. And you have DJ Reed, who has shown possibilities being really solid in Seattle. Safeties are interesting as well. Ashton Davis he's interesting to me because I'm a big Ashton Davis fan. I really liked him coming out of college. I've liked him so far in the pros, but I'm going to be honest, he hasn't been an elite player quite yet. So I'm going to be interested in whether I take a safety here. Personally, though, if I am the Jets, I'm thinking either left guard, center, or right tackle, a young offensive lineman to help pair with my young QB, try to help protect him in the future. You signed C.J. Uzomah. I don't think the tight end is a huge need right now, especially getting Tyler Conklin in free agency as well. I'd go linebacker. If I was to take a player here for the Jets, I'd be taking linebacker. It's going to be interesting because there's some good linebackers on the board still. You're looking at Nakobe Dean out of Georgia is still available. You have I went too far down. I think you got to take Jacoby Dean here if I'm the Jets. If I'm the Jets, I'm taking Jacoby Dean. He should have been a first-round pick. Let's see who they take. The Jets are going to select Breece Hall, running back out of Iowa State. Interesting. This is an interesting selection because I never thought of running back as one of their primary needs. They drafted Michael Carter in the second round last year, I believe. He's shown good things this year. Tevin Coleman's likely gone after this year, if I'm going to be honest, by picking up Breece Hall. But it's interesting. I don't think you really needed to use a pick on running back here. This is probably the first Jets pick I just kind of disagree with. I don't think it was a necessary thing here. You could pick up a good running back. This is the first running back off the board, by the way. And I love Breece Hall. I really think he's great. I think he could have been a first-round running back. And I don't know. I like him just on a different team. I don't think that was the Jets' primary need. Like, for the Texans, absolutely. Like, this should have been an easy layup pick for the Texans if it had lasted to them because, I mean, they need every position, and Breece Hall's a really great running back. But so Houston's now going to pick. In the first round last night, they ended up getting Derek Stingley Jr. to play corner, and they got an offensive lineman, Kenyon Green, I believe, who's right now starting at right guard for them. This is interesting. I mean, like, you're just looking at the team for the Texans, and it's kind of like this sucks, bro, because, like, if you're going to assume Davis Mills is your quarterback of the future, I think that's a decent assumption, right? But you're going to have to replace darn near everyone on this team. Brandon Cooks is a really great receiver, but he's getting up there in age, and you're not competing now. I'm surprised Brandon Cooks is already got. Texans are going to already pick their player. Wow. I don't think they should pick quarterback here. A lot of people think they could pick corner. Linebacker wouldn't be bad here. Nakobe Dean's a really good player. They're going to take Jalen Petrie. I think this is a really good pick for them. The Texans get one of the fastest safeties I've ever seen to play the game. He is really, really fast, guys. I really love Jalen Petrie. He is one of my favorite players in coming out of Baylor. I mean, Baylor's defense last year was really great. You can just see highlights of him. He is phenomenal. He's a fast player. He plays even faster on the field, if you can believe it. He's really great. And I'm going to be interested moving forward how Jalen Petrie fits into this safety room. Now, it's pretty obvious. I feel like takes Terrence Brooks' spot. I think Eric Murray has that strong safety spot locked down. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, he's a really good player. He's a hard hitter. He can run, man. That guy run. I feel like I would have taken an offensive lineman here if you were the Texans, but you really could pick just about any position outside of quarterback. And that's probably it. Quarterback and corner here maybe, and your team would have been happy. Your fan base would have been happy, right? Their running back would have been huge for them, especially considering right now Rex Burkhead is their starter. A receiver would have been nice because right now you're running with Chris Conley and Chris Moore as the 3 and the 4 there. Obviously, Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. Nico Collins was one of the better players last year. Just interested moving forward. We got the Falcons. So let's talk about the Falcons real quick because you don't have much time in the first round, the second round, and the third round to talk about what just happened. But let's move on to the Falcons, see what positions of need I think they have. If I'm the Falcons, I'd take a quarterback here, right? Because, I don't know, man, you need a quarterback. You took Drake London in the first round. That makes a lot of sense considering Calvin Ridley is suspended for at least a year. You need another receiver because right now, before that, Olamide Zacchaeus was your number 1 receiver, and you'd like that not to be the case. Cordell Patterson's a fine running back. You don't need another one here, at least not yet. I'd wait a little bit longer. Tight end, obviously, of Kyle Pitts is one of the most athletic people here. Offensive line's not the best thing in the world. The Falcons, I feel like could be but I think I'd take quarterback here. I mean, for God's sakes, guys, Malik Willis and Matt Corral are both still on the board, both possible first-round quarterbacks, if everyone viewed, heading into the night. So it's going to be interesting. You have your defense could definitely use improving. You're looking at the names on your defense, and outside of A.J. Terrell, Casey Hayward, and Grady Jarrett, none of them pops off the board for you as some of these great players. They're just not. Now, Richie Grant was a player drafted in the 3rd round last year. You're hoping he turns into a great safety, but Dean Marlowe and Eric Harris are both beating him out right now. You could use any position on the defense, if I'm going to be honest, or offensive line. So I'd take Nakobe Dean. Again, Nakobe Dean was a player that a lot of people thought should go mid first round. Now you're to the second round. If you're a team that needs a linebacker, take Nakobe Dean. But if you're going to take a quarterback, Malik Willis is right there. Malik Willis is a player I think has huge potential in the future. And Falcons are not a win-now football team or a team that's hoping to win. They're a team that is a long-term bet. So you've got to think that Malik Willis would fit into this situation for the Falcons rather well. But, I mean, there's an argument to be made for the other quarterback that's still around, Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. Matt Corral was the player a lot of people thought was the best quarterback in the NFL draft. I'm interested. Let's see who the Falcons take here. I think they go quarterback or Nakobe Dean. That's my prediction. Let's see what happens, though. They pick. Who the Falcons going to pick? Who is going to Atlanta? It's going to be... Dang, it takes so long. They really take a long time to turn out. I'll talk more about the Falcons. I'm going to go with Malik Willis. I think Malik Willis is my pick here. They're going to take Malik Willis. They're going to take the guy out of Liberty. They have a long-term strategy ahead. This could be a perfect quarterback of the future for Atlanta to grow behind Marcus Mariota for a year. Take Malik Willis, Atlanta. They're going to do it. I have faith in them. Yeah, they're just taking forever. Oh, my God. And the thing is about the defense, I think the argument to be made about the Falcons taking defense here is you desperately need defense to compete in the NFC South where you have Tom Brady and the Bucs offense and the Saints offense with Jameis Winston. So it's going to be interesting for Atlanta. Obviously, they're probably not going to compete in the near future, but if you wanted to compete in the near future, defense would be a pick here. But I think if you're Atlanta, Atlanta's going to end up going Arnold Ebiketie, that's my boy out of Penn State. They take a defensive end here, and he is really great. I love watching Ebiketie play. I'm so happy to see him go off the board. He really is a great player. I thought he would have gone in the first round, but Ebiketie's second Penn Stater off the board, only behind Dotson. I mean, if you watched any of Ebiketie's play last year, you would know that he's a really good pass rusher, and he's going to add a lot to this team. The only thing that I'm kind of concerned about if you're a Falcons fan is I don't know how your offense is going to compete this year. I don't know how it's going to compete with Marcus Mariota. That doesn't really matter as much because if you're looking at it from a pure fan perspective, you're not competing very soon. You're obviously going to be rebuilding for a couple of years, but the thing is, to rebuild, you need a quarterback of the future, and right now you don't have that. Now you can hope that Malik Willis or Matt Corral slips a little bit longer, or maybe you take a flyer on a guy like Sam Howell, who many thought could have gone number one overall this year before the year started. But Falcons, I don't know, man. I feel like you needed to take a quarterback there, my guy. I really love Ebiketie, but you need a quarterback of the future, and right now, that player is not on that football team, the Falcons football team. You needed a guy to be able to grow, and I don't know if that's there. It's just, it doesn't seem to me like they took a player that can do that. But, they took a player that can obviously grow and become a great defensive end. I really love Ebiketie. But you needed a quarterback, guys. I don't get it. But here comes Chicago's first pick of the draft. The Bears, right now, they're in a good situation, in my opinion, to grow for the future. The defense is interesting because you lost Khalil Mack. There's no Akeem Hicks, at least for now, on this team. This is a very much new defense. I mean, you have some of the same players. Your corners are solid in Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson and Duke Shelley. That's your secondary. DeAndre Houston Carson has never been one of my favorite players. I don't think he's all that great, but he's mediocre. Robert Quinn's obviously really good, and Roquan Smith is as well. But linebacker could be a position of need here if you're looking at it. I'm interested to see how they address the offensive line because they drafted two guys last year in Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum, who should be starting at the left and right tackle position. You have Cody Whitehair, who is a really, really solid interior lineman. Lucas Patrick's a solid center. Dakota Dozier, he's interesting for me, right? I'm not in love with Dakota Dozier, but I mean, he's good enough. I mean, he's a 2014 fourth-round pick. But Furman, I don't love Dakota Dozier, and I think if you're going to replace someone, it could be him. Your receiving core could also use a good amount of work. Darnell Mooney's obviously a really great player, but outside of Mooney, you really are lackluster in that department with Byron Pringle and Equinemius Super. Daz Newsome. I was a big fan of Daz Newsome last year, but right now he's your number 4 receiver. I think he's better than actually Equanimeous St. Brown. Personally, I would put Daz ahead of him, but Byron Pringle, you could take a receiver here if you are if you want to take a shot in Chicago. George Pickens is right there. He's a really fast receiver. You can pair him extremely well with a player of Darnell Mooney's caliber. Dang, I can't believe that the Packers only drafted 5 wide receivers. Actually, this is 5 wide receivers in the second round. Dang it, never mind. But pretty good picking by the Packers in the second round. I didn't realize that Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, and Jordy Nelson were all second round picks. Interesting stat there. But yeah, I feel like if I am the Bears, I'm going receiver here. I'm going to take Pickens. I feel like that's the choice. That's the choice here, in my opinion. Yeah, poor Evan Caddy, bro. Gets to go to Atlanta to lose some football games, but I really love him. Maybe he'll be able to make something in Atlanta. I doubt it. They're not a very good football team. They never have been. They never likely will be. But Chicago's picking right now. I'm leaning towards Pickens here. If I am Chicago, I'm either taking Jacoby Dean or Pickens. I feel like I take Pickens personally, simply because you need someone else for Fields to throw to that's not named Darnell Mooney. Allen Robinson walked in free agency this year. You need something. If you're Chicago, you need Fields to be paired with someone, and you take Kyler Gordon out of Washington. Now, it would have been my first choice. Let's see how it affects Chicago. You don't have great depth, I guess, at corner. Personally, I don't think it was definitely one of their weaker positions on defense. I honestly thought it was one of the more solid ones. Jalen Johnson, obviously a really good corner out of Utah, has been playing great for a while now. Duke Shelley is a solid number 2 corner in this league. And I guess the pick of Kyler Gordon is hoping he replaces Duke Shelley as a number 2 corner, and you have a good number 1 and number 2 for a while to come. But just interesting to me. I didn't think corner was the most obvious thing of need for Chicago. But, I don't know, man. I really would not have picked a corner there. It was definitely one of the lesser positions of need if you're looking at it for I'm sorry. If you're looking at it for just a pure football standpoint, corner was not a need really for Chicago. You had most every other position outside of quarterback was a significant need for this football team. And you went with corner. It's just really kind of interesting to me here because I don't know. I would not have picked a corner. I mean, that's just me though. I don't really agree with that selection. But Chicago pick it again? It can't be right. Seattle's picking right now, I believe. I mean, I could talk more about how I think Chicago's wrong. Yeah, Seattle's picking. I don't know why the ESPN graphics still had them up there. Seattle is an interesting football team because this is a team that could, if you're looking at it, be picking in the first round next year. They're obviously not one of the better teams in the NFL. They're starting quarterback Drew Lock right now. But right now, you could not ask for a better thing if you're Seattle. I mean, Malik Willis has fallen straight into your lap. I thought you might have had to take a quarterback in the first round with Pickett, and now you did lose your opportunity on Pickett, but Willis is right there. You have a great chance to pick up a quarterback so you don't have to play Geno Smith or Drew Lock. Honestly, I probably would have played Geno Smith over Drew Lock. I had more faith in Geno Smith than Drew Lock. I wouldn't touch your running back room or your receiver room. Probably the only 2 positions that I would have faith in. And your tight end room is good, too, with Noah Fant and Will Dissly. Offensive line could use some help. You obviously picked up Charles Cross in the first round. That's not a bad selection by any means. Very good offensive tackle. But the other positions, Jake Curhan, obviously probably one of the weaker spots on that line. You get Shelby Harris at defensive end and Poona Ford on the line. I'm not too worried about the D-line. Obviously, you could work on the right defensive tackle or the right defensive end, and Quentin Jefferson and L.J. Collier, respectively. Jordan Brooks is obviously a really good middle linebacker. Could you work on the other two, though? Jamal Adams is an interesting player because they gave up a lot to get him, but I don't know if he was worth all that much. Corner is definitely a huge position of need, and if you're not going to take a wide receiver, not a wide receiver, a quarterback like Malik Willis, I would be taking a corner to help replace Artie Burns or Sidney Jones IV. Obviously not the strongest depth there for Seattle. So obviously not great. I mean, Seattle needs corner help and it needs quarterback help. Personally, I would go quarterback here if I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. That's what I would be rooting for. It's just that's in my opinion what you need more desperately right now. You could try for a trade for either Baker, just Baker, because there's no way in the world Jimmy G is going to be traded to you. It's just not going to happen. So you should give up on that. If you're not going to draft a quarterback, you've got to go after Baker, which is going to be interesting because Carolina also has not drafted a quarterback. So got to think they're going to be making a play for Baker here soon. Be really fascinating moving forward if Seattle does not take Malik Willis here, but I feel like they pick him. There's an argument to be made for Matt Corral as well. And I'm going to be really interested moving forward. I understand Georgia linebacker Dean, and the linebacker is definitely he's a good player. He's really great, and linebacker could be a need, and you could pick quarterback after that. But personally, I feel like you got to go Malik Willis with one of these two picks. You have to find a new quarterback in the future. If you're not going after Baker, and they draft Boy Mafe, that's an interesting pick because I thought if you're going to take a linebacker, you should probably take Nakobe Dean. Instead, take Boy Mafe. This is going to be interesting. I like Nakobe Dean a lot, and if I feel like if I was going to take a linebacker, it would be him. I don't understand. It's just two picks straight in a row. I am absolutely puzzled by. Maybe he's more of an edge rusher, and if that's the case, I think I get the appeal. I do get it if he's an edge rusher, but he kind of looks like an edge rusher. And if he's an edge rusher, I really do get this selection. You need to help replace L.J. Collier, and you only really have two defensive ends on your entire roster, and him and Shelby Harris. So he looks like more of a defensive end, and now that I know if he's a defensive end and not a linebacker, you're going to use him more at defensive end, then I actually really do like the selection because you're going to be able to replace Collier on the other side, and you can help get more of a pass rush going. So I don't hate this pick. I actually think this could be a good selection. This could end up being really solid for Seattle moving forward. Yeah, I wish Adley was in here too, co-host Puppers, but I think Derek took her. Derek! I don't think he's here. Wait, actually he is here. Bring co-host Puppers out. No. Adley wants to see the big screen. She wants to be on the show. Derek Fruit. Seattle takes Kenneth Walker. That's weird. I don't know what Seattle's doing. I get a defensive end here. I do have more finals. Actually, I do have more finals. But, those are less important. I got my final paper done, and that was the big thing I needed to get done. I have all weekend to study. I don't really have anything else to do. So, yeah, that's going to be most of my weekend. It's just studying. So, I'm going to take a little break here and do an NFL Draft Livestream. I'm sorry I didn't get out last night. I really wanted to do one last night, but unfortunately, again, I had to write my paper, and this music class I had to go to a concert for. It was really dumb. Kenneth Walker, I don't understand this pick, and maybe Seattle fans can explain it to me. I mean, I get they have injury issues at running back. I mean, that's an obvious. Obviously, you've had Chris Carson and Rashad Penny out both last year, but you still have them on the roster. And I love Kenneth Walker. I really do. I think he's one of my favorite running backs in the draft. It was really an argument between him and Breece Hall for me. I think he's really, really close to the same level of talent. He obviously was a Heisman candidate this year before it kind of fell off near the end of the year. But the fact is, quarterback was such a huge, huge need. It was. You needed a quarterback in Malik Willis. You need someone. I don't know. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. I think he's a really good running back, but you need a quarterback. I don't understand what a lot of these teams are thinking, whether it's Seattle or Carolina. I mean, these teams need a quarterback. And I understand you don't want to take one too high, but 41-40 would have been a perfect opportunity to take a risk on a guy like Malik Willis. Right now, I guess both those teams are kind of betting on the fact that either Malik Willis or Matt Corral slips a little bit farther, or trade for Baker Mayfield. I'm telling you, if you roll with Drew Lock, you might go 0-16 this year. He is that bad. He is a really bad quarterback. He's not good. And he was playing with Denver when he was even slightly winning. They were still losing a whole bunch of football games. Denver had a much better put-together team last year when he was playing, when he was starting. Actually, not. Yeah, last year, somewhat. When he was starting, Denver had a much better put-together team than Seattle does this year. And the fact is, he had a better offensive line there. He might have had a better. I feel like the receiving targets are kind of a wash. I feel like they're around the same level. But you had a much better defense in Denver. Again, you have a better protection. It's just, I don't know what Seattle's plan is. I'm guessing you're trying to tank, because that's what you're going to do. If you stick with Drew Lock for a year, you're not going to win any football game. Like, they're going to win almost none. You're going to be picking number 1 overall. I mean, maybe not, because Carolina right now is starting Sam Darnold, and Atlanta right now is starting Marcus Mariota. So maybe you won't be the worst team in the NFL next year. All those quarterbacks are pretty dang bad, and you would expect them to take a QB here, but it's kind of ridiculous. What? I honestly don't understand what they're doing. Minnesota's interesting. I'm kind of fascinated by Minnesota. Heading into next year, Vikings look like a possible playoff team. Obviously, they're probably not going to win the NFC North with Aaron Rodgers still in the North. But you look at the team, there's not going to be a lot of great teams in the NFC. If you look at it, you have probably Tampa Bay, you probably have LA, and you probably have Green Bay, and that's probably it of great teams. Now, I think someone's obviously going to go for the NFC East. Personally, I think it's probably going to be Washington. Definitely not going to be Dallas, because, again, they have the NFC East curse. If you win the NFC East, you never win it the next year. It's been happening since 2004 when I was 1. So I'm going to go with that's going to happen again. It's not going to be New York, that's for sure. They don't have a good enough football team. And the Eagles they're going to be interesting, but I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts fan. I'm more on the Washington bandwagon because they have a better team built together for a playoff spot. I think if you think that Locke is going to lead you to an 11-6 regular season in a wild card berth, you are on something, because that's never going to happen in a million years. And the Hawks Steelers Super Bowl would be the funniest thing in the world. Mitch versus Drew Lock, two really busts. It's gonna be interesting. Obviously, the Vikes picking now. I like the Vikings next year. I really think they have a chance at the playoffs. I think they have a chance at a 5 or 6 seed. I think they're going to be likely the best wild card team. Now, I mean, there is an argument to be made for Arizona. There's an argument to be made for San Francisco. There's an argument to be made for New Orleans. But right now, I think Minnesota's the best team. If you're looking at it from a pure wild card perspective, you have Kirk Cousins, which a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of Kirk Cousins, but you can't deny that he has had a statistical great year last year. Might not have won as many football games as you would have liked, but again, most of those games were rather close, and it wasn't all on Kirk the reason they lost. Now, they have an elite offense. If Dalvin Cook stays healthy for an entire season, you got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. A number 3 receiver would be helpful. KJ Osborne was mediocre last year, but you would like another receiver to match up with him. Try and push him for that number 3 spot. Tight end is going to be really interesting because you let Tyler Conklin walk for some reason, despite Tyler Conklin having one of his best years last year. Yeah, you know what? I did pick the Lions and Washington football team to win their. I did not pick the Lions last year. I picked the Lions the year before that to win their division. And yeah, that was an error on my part. I will admit it. Washington football team. I don't really regret saying that Washington should have won. I think they should have. If their defense stays healthy and Ryan Fitzpatrick stays healthy for an entire season, I think they do win that division, even with the Cowboys playing mediocrely well. But you watch last year, the first game Washington played against them last year, they were still really hurt. They were playing with Kyle Allen for a large portion of that game, and they still almost came back and won that football game. So I don't think necessarily Washington was a bad pick to win the division last year. I think they were a solid team if they did not get hurt as much as they did. Obviously, they got hurt a lot, and that's why they ended up not winning the NFC East. But I don't regret picking the Washington football team for a second last year. I think they're a really good football team, and I think they're going to win it again this year, in my opinion. Obviously not the Washington football team. Now it's the Washington Commanders, which is really, really dumb. I can't believe you waited like 2 whole years to come up with the name Commanders. It's a lot of effort to come up with the most lackluster name. But it's going to be really interesting. I like the Vikes. I think this is going to be a good pick. Personally, I'd go offensive line here. Got Darrisaw, but the rest of the offensive line is rather lackluster in Minnesota. And you would like to protect Kirk. Because if your offense and your future really rides on Kirk Cousins' shoulders, if he gets hurt or if he doesn't have time, then you're going to lose football games. And I feel like I go offensive line here. But honestly, Nakobe Dean has slipped very far. I don't know. They have good linebackers. They have Daniel Hunter, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, and Zadarius Smith. So I don't know if Nakobe Dean is necessarily the best pick for them here. They only have one strong safety on their team, but it's Harrison Smith. So I don't know. Maybe a corner here if you're going to go defense. I go O-line or defense here. O-line or corner here if I am. Or tight end. I could see tight end here if you're Minnesota. Minnesota is going to pick. My TV glitched out. Andrew Booth Jr. So yeah, corner. You get a good corner out of Clemson. He's really, really solid. And it's what the Vikes needed. You needed a guy on the other side of Patrick Peterson to play. Cameron Dantzler's okay, but I prefer him more as a nickelback than a full-on started corner. I think this is a really good pick here. This is a good pick here for the Vikes. I'm really... Derek! Come on. I'm going to try and get Adelaide right now. Derek!
What?
Bring Adelaide!
No.
Yes.
No.
Derek, get out here with Adelaide.
What is it you love?
I want Adelaide.
Too bad.
For a little bit. The fans want her, Derek.
Let's not let the fans decide.
The fan...
The WNBA is more popular.
I disagree. I have 4 whole viewers, Derek, so give me my dog.
Too bad.
Derek, come on. Give me my doggo.
No.
Yes. I don't think I'm that far behind. I'm live, and you know it, you psychopaths. You're trying to mess with me. You're trying to play mind games with me. They were not picked 5 minutes ago, and I know it. And you know it. Trying to trick me. Giants are picking now. Giants have had one of my favorite drafts so far. They got Thibodeau and they got Evan Neal, and those were two of the best players, in my opinion, in the draft. I really liked what the Giants have been doing so far. They take a receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky. This is interesting because, in my opinion, I think Pickens is better than him, but I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson definitely brings a lot to the table. He has good size, he has good speed. It's on the armrest. Oh, it's Drew. So thank you, Drew Tao. I got it when I went to the New Orleans game this year. It's when they gave the little Drew speech. It was really nice, really sweet, and that's what it's on there. They've been in my past few videos when I've been recording on the futon. So yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson's really, really good. If you watched any Kentucky football last year, but I mean, to be fair, you probably didn't. It wasn't super great football to watch, but I mean, Kentucky was good enough to make it interesting. But Wan'Dale Robinson definitely is an explosive playmaker, as you can see, as he just destroys my Florida Gators because they don't know how to tackle. Oh my god. Oh, that's going to be fun next year, going to all those games, watching us miss all those tackles. But I really like what the Giants have been doing so far in the draft. Personally, I don't think receiver was the biggest position of need for New York. I just don't think it was that huge of a need. I mean, if you're still shopping Sterling Shepard and Kadarius Toney, then maybe. But you have Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, and Darius Slayton. Now you add Wan'Dale Robinson to the mix. Now, to be fair, a lot of these guys got hurt last year, so it's going to be interesting. Maybe that's how you use them now. Just bet on your guys getting hurt, but I don't know. I feel like what is taking another position of need. I mean, Jacoby Dean is right there to help with your linebacker room. Could have used a corner again. James Bradbury's getting up there in age, so is Adoree Jackson. You don't have any really good young corners on your roster. I would have taken a corner personally, but to be fair, not the best corners out there anymore. Corner has been on quite a run lately. I'm trying to find the best corner left out there. Looking at the remaining players in the draft. Man, never mind. Corner has been decimated. Marcus Jones at Houston is probably the best one remaining, and he's rated as a 76th overall prospect. So corner has been kind of decimated. I'd wait a little bit longer, too, to draft a corner. But, dang, Malik Willis is not going. And I really thought he would have gone earlier. How dare you say that about Drew? Absolutely, how dare you? Drew is one of, if not the best quarterback to ever play the game. And the fact that we lost those playoff games are not, in fact, Drew's fault. Almost none of them are Drew's fault. Outside of, maybe the Buccaneers game, the year he retired. That's just because he was playing with so many injuries. Torn rotator cuff, torn fascia, and then not to mention his lungs were, his rib cracked, punctured his lung. That's the only reason. That's the only playoff game I can blame on Drew. Every other playoff game, he played so amazingly well. The reason we lost the NFC Championship to LA was definitely not on Drew. It was more on our defense and the refs than anyone. Definitely not on Drew. And the time we lost Minnesota in the playoffs, it was not Drew's fault. Drew brought us back. One of the biggest comebacks in divisional round history. And I was going to do NBA playoff coverage, but then my team got eliminated last night, so I'm kind of angry right now. I'm kind of really, really angry that my poor Pellies got eliminated. I mean, I love my Pellies, and I think we have a really great future ahead of us. It just really kind of hurt because we were so close against Phoenix, and we had chances down the stretch to pull off a playoff victory and force a Game 7 and become one of the 6th or 5th, 8th seed to ever upset a 1 seed. Just kind of disappointed. And there's just not... I'm personally pulling for the Heat Probably rooting for the Heat and the Sixers down the stretch. Like, I want one of them to win an NBA championship. I would rather the Grizz. I wouldn't mind the Grizzlies winning an NBA championship. That'd actually be kind of cool with Ja Morant. It would definitely give my Pelicans hope because they were the 8th seed last year. I could do the rest of the NBA bracket maybe. Maybe as soon as maybe when the second round starts, my finals are done, I could start making NBA videos. Conference Champions is gonna be coming out soon. Not too soon. I still gotta complete making the rosters, but that could be coming out in the next week or so after finals. Texans pick is in though. It's gonna be interesting. Texans need every position, so let's see who they pick. Personally, Nakobe Dean. We picked John Mechie. It's interesting. This is really interesting. I mean, personally, I would have taken Pickens. I don't understand why Pickens hasn't already gone yet. He has obviously elite speed. He is really good. In my opinion, John Mechie isn't even that great. The only reason he was even that good was because he was being matched up with the number 2 corner because Jameson Williams was drawing all the single teams. And if you look at it, after he goes down, after Jameson Williams goes down with the injury, John Mechie was really not all that productive. And it's just, I don't know. I don't think John Mechie is all that great. I don't know. I would have gone Pickens. John Mechie's not a bad wide receiver by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. He's a good receiver. Ravens here should take a receiver. They really should. I mean, Pickens is still on the board if you're looking at it in your Baltimore. You just traded away Hollywood Brown for seemingly no reason outside of, like, he wanted to get out a little bit. But, now your number 1 receiver is Rashad Bateman, and your number 2 is Devin Duvernay, number 3 is James Prochet. And I love James Prochet. I met him in person. He's a really nice guy. But those should not be your top 3 receivers. You have to draft a guy, and Pickens would be perfect. He is a lot like Hollywood Brown in a lot of respects, which I know Ravens fans probably are going to be like, no, I don't want another Hollywood Brown. But a guy that's really fast but really can't get it done outside of that. But I don't know. I would take a receiver here. They're listed as Mel's team's needs: center, cornerback, and defensive end. I disagree. I think one of them's receiver. I think receiver is a huge need for this football team moving forward, especially without Marquise Hollywood Brown. Now that he's off the board, I don't see. I don't think the need for corner is phenomenally great. I don't think you desperately need a corner here. You're looking at it. You have Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, and now sure, if they get hurt, Imam Marshall and Kayvon Seymour is not the most elite number 3 and number 4 options, but I feel like you need a good number 1 option at receiver. And if you really are serious and you're the Ravens about winning a national championship, a Super Bowl or going far in the playoffs, you need a good receiver. And the fact is, right now, you don't have them. You just don't. You've got to find someone else. Right now, Rashad Bateman's your number 1. He barely saw time last year. Sure, he was a first-round pick, but, like, come on. You need a receiver here if you're Baltimore. You gotta take one. You have good enough defensive ends, in my opinion. Derek Wolfe and Tyus Bowser, not to mention, where is he? I don't see him on here. I swear. Odafe Oweh. They put him at strong side linebacker. I don't know. I feel like he's more of a pass rusher, but maybe that's just me. They have Calais Campbell. In my opinion, it's not their most desperate need is pass rush. I think their most desperate need is to find a good receiver to throw the ball to. And right now, in my opinion, you don't have it. You don't have it with your players on the field. I think you need a good number 1 option. That way, Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay and James Prochet, they can all thrive in their respective roles. Let's see who they pick. Matt Stover's announcing who's it gonna be. It's gonna be David Ojabo. This isn't a bad pick by any stretch of the imagination. I really like Ojabo. He was a really great number 2 option. The pass rush. They're all wearing purple already. What a bunch of legends. But if you knew it. Bro, I know that it wasn't a national championship. That's why I laughed at myself when I said it. But, man, I didn't think linebacker was their biggest need, but Ojabo was right there. He's obviously one of the better players, and I think that Kobe Dean's better, but I mean, I understand picking Ojabo here. He's obviously proven himself as a pass rusher. Man, the Kobe Dean. Actually projected pick number 14, and you're still alive at 46. Now, Detroit here. Detroit has had one of my favorite drafts. I know I've said that for New York, both New York teams, but this one, it's really true. I really love what Detroit's doing so far in this draft. They're picking the players that make their team better. They obviously got Aiden Hutchinson, number 2 overall, which in my opinion is a steal. And you're going to actually have a good pass rusher this year. You got Jameson Williams, and honestly, that receiving combo is starting to look actually quite scary in Detroit, despite last year being one of the more pathetic receiving combinations. But you have some really good, solid receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, and Jameson Williams. Not to mention your number 4 guys, Josh Reynolds, who had a great year last year, Khalif Raymond, who when healthy was doing great, and Quintez Cephas, who again when healthy was doing great. You have really 6 great receivers that you can turn to. I'm going to be interested in running back moving forward. DeAndre Swift, if he can stay healthy, if he can get back to himself, his good explosive self. I like how Mel's team's needs. I honestly think they might be listing every single position. They're like, oh, on defense, you need defensive, tackle, linebacker, safety, corner, defensive end. Basically all of the positions. Keegan-Michael Key is announcing who is going. Actually, I kind of really do like watching the Lions play football. I love Dan Campbell since I'm a Saints fan, and I really do wish him all the best luck in Detroit. If Aaron had left the NFC North, I think it would have been an interesting thing. But Josh Paschal, so you drafted another. So you draft another defensive end, which is going to be interesting. You pair him with Aiden Hutchinson, so I guess that was their big focus heading into the year. This draft, get new defensive ends. You have to have a pass rush, and honestly, that was one of the bigger issues last year for them. They couldn't quite get a good, healthy pass rush going. Get a really solid player, Pascal, out of Kentucky, and anyone who watched Pascal last year knows how good he really is. I only really watched him in 2 games, and one of them was against my Florida Gators. And trust me when I say I did not enjoy watching Pascal do that to my team. But he really did destroy it, and I'll give Pascal all the credit in the world. He really was great in that football game. Just watch this highlight. He's going to just destroy the Florida offensive line, and he was doing that all game. He was really killing us. But Pascal was a really great player, and excited. The Commanders are now on the clock. Commanders ended up getting Jahan Dotson, and honestly, Washington's an interesting football team. I have them winning the NFC East next year. Obviously, I'm going to come out with my playoff prediction video before the season starts, and that'll be official and everything. But it's an interesting. Washington's an interesting football team because you look at it. Carson Wentz, there's big question marks around him. Is he going to be a good quarterback? I mean, obviously he had a chance with Indianapolis this year and ended up blowing it. Wide receiver, I don't view as much as big of a need anymore, right? Because you have Terry, and the big question is, can you find a receiver to match with Terry? You drafted Dotson in the first round, and I think he's a really great receiver out of Penn State. I love Dotson. Obviously, I'm a huge Penn State fan, but I really like Dotson a lot. Curtis Samuel is a really great option if he can still stay healthy. And De'Ami Brown is another one that's going to be extremely interesting moving forward. He showed flashes some of this year, but didn't quite stay healthy. If Logan Thomas can come back and be back to his elite self, you're going to have an elite receiving core of McKissick, likely if you're throwing the ball, McLaurin, Samuel, Dotson, and Logan Thomas. And that is a killer combination. Not to mention the defensive line where you have, if you bring them all back, Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. You have a good linebacker in Cole Holcomb. Timmy Davis struggled a little bit last year. You'll be interested to see if the first-round pick can live up to that first-round potential. You need another linebacker, and that's what's really going to be interesting at the end of the year. David Mayo is right now their strong side linebacker. You obviously don't want that. I think you have a good secondary. Kendall Fuller he's a really good corner, an underrated corner. William Jackson III started to come into his own as the season went along. Benjamin St. Juste has proven to be a great nickel guy. Cameron Curl's obviously a really good strong safety, and Bobby McCain's a really good free safety. Jeremy Reeves is a really solid depth player, good special teams guy. So I'm going to be interested moving forward. I think if I am the Redskins, or the Commanders, or the Washington football team, or whatever, Logan Thomas is elite. I don't know if you watched any Washington games, but he really is, when he is healthy, one of the best tight ends in the entire NFL. I put him up, obviously, George Kittle and Travis Kelce are the top two, but I put him up against Mike Gesicki in Miami, or Rob Gronkowski in Tampa, or I'm trying to think of another great tight end, Mark Andrews in Baltimore. When Logan Thomas is healthy, he is one of the best tight ends in the entire league. I mean, outside of Travis Kelce and George Kittle, obviously